Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello everyone, welcome to this episode. I am so excited that you're here. It has been a hot minute since I released a podcast episode. And so this conversation feels really special for me to share with you today, especially coming out of my little cocoon of like a mini break that I had from the podcast. Because it is with the incredible singer-songwriter, Jamie Leonhart, who's also my voice teacher. Jamie and I have been working together pretty much on a weekly basis since about mid-2019. When I first met Jamie, I was shopping around for a voice teacher. And this was after I released my first album, Elementary Love, and I kind of was playing a bunch of shows in New York. And I was feeling like I was bumping against limitations around my range, my ability to kind of use my voice. I had really not had any voice lessons or really worked on my voice before then. I was just kind of someone who really loved singing, and I had a very solid musical background because I was trained as a classical pianist. So I knew how to sing on pitch and things like that. But really playing live made me come to a realization of my limitations as a singer. So at that point, I was taking lessons with a bunch of different teachers, and none of them really stuck with me, and none of them really resonated. And I wasn't even sure at that point if my singing journey, whether I was going to have one teacher or whether I was going to maybe have like a situation where I had multiple teachers. But anyways, the reason why I'm telling you all of this was because Jamie came recommended to me by a very well-renowned voice teacher who was the teacher of one of my good friends. And it's just so funny because the first time that I walked into that lesson with Jamie, I just knew something clicked. And then before I even knew it, and before I even was able to consciously compute it, by the end of the lesson, I was the one asking her to schedule our next lesson, because I was just like, I really had this feeling of like, this is going to be the teacher that I'm going to be exploring my voice with for a while. And so, it's interesting because I decided to take voice lessons because I love singing so much and I love using my voice. But I was also really scared to use my voice, both my physical and my metaphorical voice. And I think looking back, what I'm really realizing as I was editing this conversation with Jamie was how crucial Jamie's role has been in my own healing journey, especially in the reclamation of my voice, which is, it's actually a really powerful initiation. And I didn't even quite realize this, but when you think about it, your voice is like a very unique instrument, you know? Like your voice does not exist anywhere else in the universe. The unique frequency of your voice only exists within you in this particular format of your incarnation. So I think in some ways, for me, my own journey with singing has taught me that it's okay to take up space, that it's okay to explore something that truly means something to you and that is so deeply calling to you, because I was always that child, and I get really emotional actually trying to talk about this. I was always that child who wanted to be a singer. And I think in many ways, I was always a singer. I just didn't have the guts to take my own voice seriously. Whew. And yeah, I think I'm just so grateful for the work that I've done with Jamie, because over the past 3 years, she's truly held such a safe space for me to kind of come back to every week, to explore, to try on things that is really triggering sometimes. Because it's like, if you've ever heard a voice lesson, it's really embarrassing to use your voice, and to stretch yourself to the limits of what your voice can do. Okay, so enough about me. In this conversation, we discussed quite extensively, and I was really, really, really glad that we did that. We discussed Jamie's creative process with her latest album, Illusion of Blue, which is truly, truly one of my favorite albums in 2022. We discussed the process of tending to the delicate balance between being an artist, a mother, and a teacher for Jamie. We also talked about the identity crisis that came with being a musician who was not able to play live, who was not able to do the thing that she loved the most during the pandemic. We also discussed what healing practitioners can benefit, or how healing practitioners can benefit from exploring their voices and really translating this deep soul level calling and passion through the physical instrument of their voices, which I assume may be relevant for some of you, because a lot of you listening to this podcast are healing practitioners, are astrologers, are tarot readers, artists of, one modality or another. And then finally, also, it would be remiss if I didn't talk about the fear of using the voice, because that's such a huge part of my own journey, as well as my journey learning from Jamie and with Jamie. And yeah, so I will be reading you Jamie's bio. And after that, I really want to share one of Jamie's tracks, actually my favorite track from Illusion of Blue, because I feel like I love Jamie's bio, and you can get to know someone a lot from me reading their bio and from you listening to their conversation, my conversation with them. But I really feel like you're really going to get to know Jamie on a soul level as an artist through listening to her song. So I'm going to play one of her songs, and then I'll let you get to our interview. So here is Jamie's bio. Drawing comparisons to the likes of Norah Jones and Feist, the sharp-witted singer-songwriter Jamie Leonhart is an artist who is difficult to categorize, dynamic in emotional range and diverse in genre-crossing ability. Jamie Leonhart was born in New York City, the granddaughter of a cantor and the youngest of 3 musically curious children. She began studying the violin at age 3 and singing soon after. Jamie inhabits a hybrid of popular music that incorporates jazz, indie pop, and quirky torch song cabaret. Live, her audience becomes a collective co-conspirator as she intones her confessions, dissatisfactions, and desires, supported by arrangements that move from somber to playfully bombastic in a moment. Jamie's approachable demeanor belies powerhouse vocals and her ability to deliver intricate compositions, which she does with depth and clarity. As a songwriter, Jamie writes about vulnerability, patience, frustration, shifting perspectives, and trust. Jamie is employed as both a commercial voiceover artist and vocalist, and also works as a background and session singer for Steely Dan and St. Vincent, among others. Jamie is a 2015 commissioned New York Voices artist of the Public Theater, Joe's Pub, and created Estuary, an artist's mother story, through this commission. Her second solo record, The Illusion of Blue, was released in February 2022. All right, so before I let you get to my conversation with Jamie, here is Estuary from Jamie's latest album, Illusion of Blue. Enjoy.
A delicate balance is disrupted by the rushing sea, an event that's always been expected, but was still a surprise to me. We happened upon this estuary. Was it a part of our travel plans? Had I realized the depth of it, the weight of the salt in the water? Would I have stopped before we began? The tide has just turned an occurrence, natural and wondrous begins at once so exposed and productive. Did we stop to take this in? Place to be when balance is achieved. Feed off the nutrients created, great blue heron, salmon, and seals elated. A necessary disruption of this habitat. Then recovery begins again. The river don't behave as expected. The sea will overtake the fresh water, resulting in unlivable conditions. But if they don't attempt to meet, the river doesn't join the sea. All would become choked, become stagnant. Nothing is able to
right. Welcome to the podcast, Jamie.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you for being here. I'm just so thrilled to have this conversation with you. You and I have been working now for about 3 years, almost
Yeah.
on a weekly basis
I know.
on my
I know.
voice, which is unbelievable.
It's amazing.
You make voice exploration super fun. So thank you for that.
I'm so glad. Well, you make it really fun too, I have to say, because it's always, I feel like, I mean, I would say that one of the prompts for us even having this discussion is not only how much work we do together exploring your voice, but all these little side tangents that we end up having
Yeah,
during your lesson, So it's like
exactly.
both a vocal exploration and an emotional exploration and a philosophical exploration, like all rolled into one.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get into the psychological aspects there because for me, what kept me from taking voice lessons for so long was because I felt really held back. I felt like I had no right. Like, who am I to claim myself as a singer? You know, it's scary. I mean, now thinking about it, I'm like, whoa, that's a wild one. But that was a huge one for me, and that
It's
lived in
deep.
my
Yeah.
body for a very long time. Yeah.
Where do you think that came from? Like, where do you think asking yourself, because it's a pretty like negative, I mean,
It is.
it's pretty harsh,
It
right? I
is.
mean,
It really is.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of it is really ancestral for me. A lot of it came from, uh, you know, coming from a lineage of people who were not really allowed to express themselves one way or another, or had to find new ways to express themselves because of where they moved to, the oppressions they experienced, and then feeling disconnected from one's own true voice, you know? Mm.
And voice specific, right? Because like I know, just because I know we've known each other for a few years now, that
Yeah.
you are a pianist and you found expression through piano.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow you and permitted yourself that expression,
And
right?
not the
Like,
voice
and
expression.
not your actual instrument that lives within you, right? That's like
Totally.
truly like, so this, just to say like what I was saying before when we were chatting before we started, that you stimulated this like exploration into this old workshop that I did, and the title phrase for the workshop was of course I'm going to get it wrong if I don't look at it because but it was like the voice, your voice is the barometer of your being. Or like the barometer. There was another one, and I've seen it now more recently, but this was like multiple years ago. But it's like your voice is the barometer of your being, of your soul, of your well-being, and so it's interesting that you found a way to express yourself maybe in a way that your lineage wouldn't have permitted with
Yeah.
piano,
Yeah.
but taking that one step forward that was like truly you, like your own unique voice, right? Not saying that you wouldn't hear someone's style on piano and be like, oh, that's Rachmaninoff or that's whoever,
Right.
you
Right.
know. But when you hear someone's voice, it's like immediately like, oh, that's Jonathan,
Recognizable,
right?
yeah. And it's
Recognizable.
unique.
It's your thumbprint.
Exactly.
Right. So it's so interesting that like that one farther step that would really identify you as you was what you were denying yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think a lot of us too, growing up, with certain synthesis of, ancestral oppression, or like, our ancestors being oppressed in one way, shape, or form, or experiencing, like for me, being a person whose first language is not English, it's
Right.
like, oh, my accent's going to show, and then people are going to judge me based on that. So it's like, better not use my voice, better use something that I can disguise myself through expertise. Yeah.
That is deep.
That
is-
okay. So,
But I'm so glad that but I'm so glad that you somehow overcame that enough
Mm-hmm.
to start the exploration.
Yeah.
You know, because you could have just said, well, that's it.
Totally.
That's it. I'm going to keep myself there. But instead, there was something within you that was curious enough or, you know, tenacious enough, or I don't know, you can fill in whatever the enough is, that got you to us, right?
Totally. Totally. Yes. Yes. And it's really interesting to think about like what gives us that propensity, right? Or that desire to want to go there, you know, to want to explore that part of us that feels so personal and so deep. Yeah. And I think you do such a great job at creating a space that feels, I don't know if safe is actually the right word. It feels really courageous and it feels really authentic. And it's a space where we can really meet the moment of where the voice is at the moment, you know, or where the voice is today.
Yeah.
So that feels like such a gift. Working with you has been such a gift for me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That makes me feel so happy.
Yeah.
Truly.
I'm glad. So I like to start these conversations by asking people the same question, which is who do they sense, know, or feel themselves to be in the present moment or in this chapter of your life?
Oh, that is a really, really intense question.
Well, we start intensely, Jamie.
Okay. No, I'm game. I'm totally game.
Cool.
I sat down for a few minutes before we started and just kind of sat here, you know, centering, just saying we're just in the moment, like we're truly in the moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm I want to call it like it's probably, I was just reading this book and I can't remember which book I was reading, but they were talking about something being loamy, you know, like kind of rich and rich with potential, like soil rich with potential, right? And I think today I'm gonna look at myself in this rich with potential place, like. Partly, I think, due to the very strange patterns from the height of the pandemic or the start to height of pandemic. And obviously we're still in it, but everybody wants to pretend that we're not, you know?
Yeah.
So like, but I'm not going to talk about it like it's in the past because it is truly still upon us, you know?
Totally.
But I think, you know, my artist self, you know, like Jamie as singer and songwriter and creator of music, had a little bit of a stunting at the top of the pandemic. And I've had kind of many, many ups and downs within the past 2.5 years. Like first I completely shelved the record that was was supposed to come out like as the pandemic was starting. And instead of pushing forward and through it, I just literally just like, I can't listen to it. I don't want to know about it right now because I just didn't feel like I had enough space, you know, to actually honor it. And I was afraid that I would banish it. Like it would be like, I don't know what to do with you. So therefore, like you have to be away forever. But instead I was like, you just have to go be patient, please. And sit over there for a while I figure out who I am as an artist, you know? And I found that was even further impacted because I had a lot of friends who are artists, performers also, who went like really whole hog into performing on the internet, like doing Zoom concerts, and I couldn't do it. Like, I mean, I could have, but I really didn't want to do it. Like I felt so lonely, even considering it, you know, like so distanced and lonely and sad. And so I was just like, okay, well, you're not going to sing publicly right now then. That's okay, you know? But it's challenging, right? Because then like
it's like that if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, does it make a sound? It's like, or whatever. That's what it is, right?
Exactly.
Like all of a sudden it sounded very wrong as I said it, but it's like, so you go around singing in your own home, right? And you're singing, maybe recording, but not even, because I wasn't really into that in that moment. I was singing like with my kid, for fun. But you sing differently when it's just like walking around your house and in your shower.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was just like kind of crazy. And so then I think for me, like over these past 2.5 years, I found the record again. Like I patiently went through it, like changed things about it that wouldn't have been had I put it out and immediately. Like I split it into two different sections.
Yeah.
So that they made more sense as opposed to like the way initially it had been ordered. And spent more time on artwork and spent more time, on redoing a vocal because I was like, I can. Like now that I'm ready to do vocals, I can redo a vocal. Like I don't have to say like, yeah, but I did that already. I scrapped a song, like. And then I finally, once things were kind of becoming public again, like I finally did a show to celebrate the record,
Yeah.
And then felt like, okay, that was okay. You waited. Like you were patient, which I'm not a patient person, really, and so like I felt kind of proud of myself. So now the record's pretty much done except for the vinyl, which you and I had discussed previously that I'm still struggling with, like, do I do that or not? And I still don't know. And so now I'm like, okay, so now what, artist? Like, so now what on what's today? Whatever the date is today. I don't even know the date. But like, so now what? Today in the present, like, what are you going to do? What do you want? How do you want to sing? What do you want to write? Do you, like, are you interested in writing? So I'm in that lonely place right now that like, there's a lot of, like, I truly could do anything, and I don't know what it is yet, but I don't feel like banishing anything either. So that's that's my artist where she is right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds to me
so
like you're
verbose. Sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. I love every single minute and every single word of it. I was getting this image of the waning moon, actually. It's like you have just, somehow, right, managed to really realize and then to share this huge project that you've been pregnant with for a while. Because also I know that The Illusion of Blue, which is the name of your album, came out of Estuary, the show.
Yes.
Right? Is that right? Estuary is the title of the show? Okay.
Yeah.
And so you've been shepherding it for a while, and it's seen you through many different iterations of yourself, as well as many different iterations of the world.
Absolutely.
And I think what you're exploring too around, what you said about the singer identity at the beginning of the pandemic, to me really brings up this question of like, who is the singer, right? Is the singer the person who is using their own voice in the comfort of their own home? Or is the singer, the teacher? Or is the singer, the person who is in front of the audience? Like, I think that there's a bit of a disillusion in terms of the rigid identities, right? That maybe we never even had to question. Like, we didn't even realize they were rigid or that they were there because we never had to question.
Right.
Prior to this shit show, revelation that we've been experiencing the past few years.
Yeah. Right. It's like we didn't have to stop to ask these questions, right?
Yeah.
We weren't challenged with any of that, I guess some people are, if they're super aware. But I will count myself as someone who wasn't really aware. It's like you get into a pattern, you do things, you have opportunities, you take the opportunity. When someone asks you, do you want to play a show? Do you want to sing with me? And you're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's fulfilling somehow or makes you feel part of something or, and so I think, it's not so much about going on autopilot as much as it is like the familiar, right?
Exactly.
And our familiar was really pulled out from underneath us.
100%.
You know?
100%. Yeah.
Like all of it.
Yeah. I'm excited for this new, chapter you're exploring.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about it. Because I try to like foist like something upon myself, like you should do this,
Yeah.
write about this, even if it's completely like I end up not there, it's like at least I make some kind of proclamation, about it. And I don't have a big proclamation, and other days I might be scared of that, but today I'm just curious about it, you know?
Yeah.
Today, like if we're talking about being in the moment, right?
Yeah. When did your voice exploration begin? And
Like,
what was that experience like? Yeah.
oh my goodness. I feel like I've had different chapters of exploration. Like I always loved singing, like from when I was a kid, like really loved singing, and kind of knew that I could, like there was some external affirmation,
Right.
and then some just like it felt right, like it felt good, like I liked the way it felt. So, but I was really shy to like I was, what are those, I don't know what those scales are called, but like I had a lot of friends and was liked enough, right? But I had a lot of social anxiety and but could hang, but like it really cost me a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I surrounded myself, like my immediate people I surrounded myself with were the people who knew that about me.
You
And
had an inner circle.
to this day I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there could be the exterior that I would really get along with, but still, be sweating quite a bit, And so I sang a lot in high school, and I was in an a cappella group, a vocal jazz group. Not a cappella, it was a vocal jazz group. I did a cappella in college. And my best friend was in it, and she was like an amazing like performer. Like she is an amazing performer, like really out there, like just not saying she doesn't have fears, but she could put the fears aside to just blow the walls down, like just, and she could sing, but her ear wasn't great. And so we had like a deal that I would sing close to her when we would do the harmonies so that she would stay in our part. Because sometimes she'd, veer off into other parts.
Yeah.
And she would choreograph like our stuff and like, and like dance next to me. So like I had a partner, so I could sing freely, but not feel like scared,
Yeah. About the performance aspect.
About the performative aspect. Exactly. And then I sang in high school, in college, I was in an a cappella group, and then I like was a backup singer, in like tons of, like a couple different groups. One of them ended up being, and I think I've told you this, but like one of them ended up being Ken Rockwood's group, who owns Rockwood Music Hall. And I hadn't seen him in like 1,000 years. And then saw him like sitting up in that little perch at Rockwood One. And I was like, oh my God, like when I was 20, I was in your group called Pet the Poodle,
Wow.
like, yeah, it was completely insane. And then, but I always just sang from my gut. You know what I mean? Like I really sang from my gut. I wasn't trained as a singer at all. Like I played violin when I was a kid. Like that was my instrument. I don't know if it was really of choice, but it was certainly the instrument that I played like 3 to 17, and then like let it go. And then I sang, but I was very untrained and, terrible habits and patterns. But I sang because I loved it. And then I started like going back to bring us back to your original question. the next phase was actually being curious about why mechanically I could sometimes do things and other times not do things.
Right.
Why I lost my voice, why. Those are the two biggest whys, I think, like just the mechanics and then also the health.
Yeah.
And so then I finally started taking voice lessons and got really curious about it. And then that brought me to like kind of understanding my voice more. And then like, well, what can I do with it? Well, that's interesting, and I like, I mean, again, this is like my early 20s, and I certainly didn't have any desire to sing classical material, but I bought like those, I don't know if you've seen these, they're like, Hal Leonard maybe prints them, it's like mezzo soprano, easy arias or whatever. And it comes with like a CD or
Right.
now probably it's digital now, but like it came with a CD and it was like, Mozart or whatever, like something that wasn't incredibly challenging. And it was like in French or Italian. So like if you speak any romantic language, like you couldn't kill it at least,
Yeah.
murder it at least, and so I like played with those, like never for anyone to ever hear me do that, but just like,
Yeah.
oh, well, what can my voice do here? And what can it do here? And then I was in a gospel choir and what can I do here? And so I started really being so curious about my voice as an instrument to push boundaries with,
Yeah.
And I think I still do that. Like, I think then that continued forward, like what am I asking of this instrument? What will it do? What won't it do? At what cost will it do certain things,
Right.
And am I willing to pay that cost, knowing, how to get myself out of it probably, or having someone who would help me get out of it if I really got stuck. But, so now it's like I have a friendship with my voice that I think I didn't necessarily have when I was younger. When I was younger, like sometimes it betrayed me, sometimes it didn't, sometimes it was, and now it's like we're partners, my voice and me. And I think I'm kinder to it, about it. Like if there are days that just don't feel, either maybe they sound okay, but don't feel okay, And or if they don't sound okay, then like, why? As opposed to like, that's it, it's all over, forget it, I quit. So I think, again, like, I think also with age and time, like I understand that more, like how it is really a partnership, right?
I love that. That was beautiful. I would love to explore your work as an educator, as a voice teacher, because
Okay.
like I mentioned in the beginning, it's funny because when I started telling people, actually, I got this a lot when I was releasing my album, that people would privately come up to me. And some of these people are people who are very successful in their fields, people who have really made it in like the corporate world or doing XYZ, telling me that they've always wanted to sing. They've always wanted to explore their own voice, but somehow they didn't, or they didn't think they would be good at it. Right. And like, I remember being 12 and having this experience of listening to a recording of my own, kind of transitioning voice from like boyhood into like the adult male voice. And just was so terrified. I was like, what the hell is this sound?
Right.
Like it was so scary. And then later on, when I was maybe 15, it was interesting because I remember listening to myself sing and thinking, damn, that was pretty good. Like that sounded a lot better than I thought in my head. But somehow the video of me being in my 15-year-old body singing was so terrifying to me. And it was so appalling that I was like, I would never put myself out there like that again. Like I have to hide behind a piano because that was freaking embarrassing,
Yeah.
And I think something about taking voice lessons for people who maybe didn't identify with being a singer from a very early age is kind of an embarrassing experience because you have to explore, different nooks and crannies in your voice, and it always feels a bit more extreme than it actually sounds, you know? So I don't know. I feel like you're always so kind, you're always so encouraging, and you maintain like a flexible structure in our work together, and
Mm.
things always feel so organic. So I feel like the first question I have for you is, do you feel like everyone can sing? Or do you think that there are people, you know, provided someone can speak, do you
Yeah.
think they can also sing?
For the most part, yes. I know that
Mm.
was a very strange sound that just came out of me first, but because I think, from what I understand, and again, like scientists and doctors listening, if anyone is, I apologize for being like so rudimentary with what I'm about to say. But from what I understand, that unless you actually have some kind of technical, medical, inner ear issue,
Mm.
that you can actually find melody and pitch.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to throw this back to you yet. But I want you to think about this a little bit. To think about what does it actually mean to sing?
Mm.
Because I
Mm.
think that's the bigger question. It's like we all have ideas as, we have from very early age, we have models, right? That we hear singers. It could be if we grow up in an environment where we have a lot of music around us, like, so
Yeah.
if we grow up in the church, right? Like, if you grow up in the black church, there's a lot of singing all the time, right? That's like, if you grow up in, a home full of musicians, if you grow up, I mean, different religions have a lot of singing, right? I mean, a lot of, I don't know why I'm harping on religious stuff, but I think it's like, if it's in your home, if it's in,
Yeah.
then you have first you have models that are directly around you. So it's
Mhm.
like, I kind of sound like that person, or I'm going to model myself after that person. And then we get a little bit to the individuation. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Where we start listening to maybe contemporary music or maybe whatever it is. Let's talk a little bit more about contemporary world though, okay? Because it's like what comes out of us organically,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
We might start modeling a little bit, like, or hearing, I love so and so's voice or the way they express themselves. And we kind of
Yeah.
tether ourselves to that's what a great voice is.
Mhm.
That's what a singer sounds like,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? And so, why I ask you that question back, it's like, what does it mean to be a singer?
Mhm.
Because you're going to find a different definition from every person that you ask, right?
Totally.
So, what I say is, I think everybody can be a singer if their intention is to derive satisfaction from the sound making,
Mhm. Mhm.
joy, expression.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I love that definition. Yes. And I feel like that's something that is maybe a little underrated, right? Especially when we come from, yeah, like looking at someone like Whitney Houston, or like Celine Dion or Mariah Carey, and it was just like, there's no way I could sing like that.
Right. It's like those are vocal athletes. They're
Hmm.
vocal acrobats,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean that they are like, and then, okay, listen to Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Listen
Yeah.
to Bjork. There's all these artists that you've introduced me to, some Japanese artists that just make crazy sounds,
Yeah.
right? There's like some really beautiful and something that you'd be like, wow, I would never have considered making that sound, but how
Hmm.
impressive, like how cool. I'm transfixed. I want to hear that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I feel like if you define yourself as a singer, I'm not talking about someone who's got like this false bravado and like doesn't put in the time or energy, like not that,
Hmm.
but someone who feels like I am really curious about the sounds that I'm making, and I have something to express. Well, I think that they are singers then.
Yeah. 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 I've recently been thinking a lot about the myth of Orpheus
Mm.
and this idea of like, what does it mean to be someone who works with music in like this beautiful, artful, like just oozing out of you kind of way? And does that even look like the overproduced, over-cultivated version of musicality that we see now in the Western world, right?
Mm.
I don't know the answer to that, but I guess I'm curious to explore with you. Do you feel like there's value in someone working with their voice, even if they never wanted to become like quote unquote a singer? Maybe if
Mm-hmm.
they were, I don't know, like a yoga teacher, or like a meditation facilitator, or even like an astrologer like me,
Mm-hmm.
or a
Yes.
podcast person. Like, in what
Yes.
ways can working with the voice help us doing all these other things and expressing ourselves?
Absolutely. Well, I think, you know, especially with the population that you were just mentioning, right? Um, yoga teacher, a lot of yoga teachers chant, right? A lot of yoga
Mm,
teachers have some kind of musical element.
yeah,
Not all of, types of yoga do that, but a lot do, and a lot of yoga is also associated with kirtan, like devotional singing. Meditation teachers use their voices, in ways that has to have some kind of ebb and flow, some kind of up and down.
true.
You as a podcaster, you as an astrologer who shares information with people and you want to do it in a palatable way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we so I think if we look at those people as voice users, right? Maybe we don't call them singers. Some do, cross into that realm, but who use their voices in a way that their expression has to be dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
If they are taught to cultivate a little bit more understanding of how their instrument works,
Mm-hmm.
then they will have more access to expression.
Yes.
And that really is it, and I think it's like you are drawn to, I'm kind of making this up a little bit, but let's say you're drawn to astrology because of the nuance and the dynamics of it and what it tells you about people and what it tells you about yourself and how it connects the person to the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's a ton more. Um, but what if you didn't know how to express yourself,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? What
Yeah.
if when you were talking to someone, everything was here, or if you really talk like this, or like if you were, like whatever it was, or, like what if you didn't understand how to convey that? Or what if that wasn't something that you even thought that you might have to do
Yeah.
in. So, like, what if I'm a yoga teacher and I'm like, I love anatomy and I love watching someone understand their bodies, but I'm terrified to sing because someone told me when I was 5 years old to stop singing when I was in
Yeah.
chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Or someone told me that my voice was nasal
Oh,
when I
yes.
talked,
Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
or
Mm.
whatever the someone said that you take in
Yeah.
when you're little.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many students I've had who are not singers, but who say, or just want to like go do karaoke or like want to sing happy birthday without feeling like they have to mouth it,
Mm-hmm.
because someone said to them, you should just really not sing,
Mm-hmm.
or your voice is so annoying, or you're so loud. All of those things. And it's like, I would really hope that the person who said that wasn't trying to ruin someone's life,
Mm-hmm.
But the unfortunate part is they actually kind of did, or they ruined a
Mm-hmm.
part of someone's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so part of it, without it being like music therapy, I think is helping someone reclaim their voice,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And their
And I have been
expressions.
working with, and their expression. And I have been working with this population and like I'm in the processes of developing a workshop that can be plugged into a yoga teacher training or a meditation teacher training, or, you know, I guess the sky's the limit, you know, but I'm kind of starting with what I know and understand, and then I can move out of that, but I need to be plugged in, you know, first. And it's amazing, Jonathan. Like, it's amazing, honestly. Like, I've did just a little bit of work with a small handful of that population, and I am so moved and excited by it. Like, because 1 or 2 lessons and someone's like, oh my God, I never thought about my voice that way. I never thought I could express myself that way.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And it's funny because even in our work together, I've brought to you these concerns of like, oh, I've been talking a lot and it's really costing my voice and I don't know what to do about it. And then we explore different ways to, and you know, for me, what's interesting is almost like I create 2 different boxes. You know, one is like me as the person who talks, you know, or like the podcaster, the astrologer, the employee, whatever. And then in the other box is me, the singer. And it almost is like there's no bridge between the 2. And our work together has been a lot about like bridging the 2. And it's like, how can you use some of these vocal exercises that sounds like maybe they're geared more towards cultivating the singing voice in order, it's almost like they're medicine, you know?
Yes. Yeah. 100%. And it's like, if we don't think about them as separate, right? We just think about it that we are creating like a platform, or we're creating, I don't know, I always think about it, and I'm sure this is from my mentor, from Jeannie Levetri, but I always think about it being like a toolbox.
Yeah.
Right? And so we put all these tools into your toolbox, and then you can say, oh, I'm going to do some recording for my podcast. I want to make sure that I've used X and Y, because otherwise I know I get a little tired.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Let me go into my toolbox and maybe that means for you that you do a vocal warm up that would be using those tools, so that when then you go to speak, you're in a place that feels really comfortable and feels like you, but has a lot of expression and can move up and down, you know, or maybe even you just have a little consciousness while you're working, you know? And so it doesn't have to be like you have to take this out of your toolbox and do X, Y, and Z, but it's like you're thinking about your whole experience as a voice user versus Jonathan as singer, Jonathan as astrologer, podcaster.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, like I think something you're bringing forth here is the idea of using the principles of vocal development in order to almost like subtly recalibrate as you're doing it, you know, because like for me, for example, noticing that, oh, I've been stuck, you know, saying a few sentences just in this tone, right? And then getting myself out of that, adding a little bit more dynamic, adding, you know, different, like using different parts of my voice so that it's not overused in just one part of the voice.
Absolutely. Right. 100%.
Yeah. And it's more interesting for people to listen to as well.
It is, because cadence has a lot to do with it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, not cadence solely for cadence sake, you know, because then it's like someone might fall asleep because you've got this like up and down and this lulling thing, and it feels like you're sitting, you know, in a boat, you know, but having cadence so that there are things that are pulled up and things that move down, and you sit someplace and then you get off of it, and, you know, and then it's like you are taking someone on a little journey.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious to hear about Illusion of Blue. Can we talk about your album? I feel like there's a really interesting story there. As we mentioned, you know, a few moments ago, it was born out of the show you did, Estuary, which actually I never caught. I think when we started working together, you were just coming off of working on Estuary.
Oh, I have. You know, I have a video of it, not the latest iteration.
Yeah.
But like an older one. I'll send it to you.
I'll send you
a link to it.
I would love to see that, because I feel that I remember you had a I don't remember if it was a fundraising campaign or if it was a trailer for Estuary. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember, you know, hearing some of the songs that I really adore from Illusion of Blue, and also seeing that there was something different in them. Like you were carrying a different energetics in the show or
Yeah.
something like that. So definitely there was an evolution there. I really love Illusion of Blue. I feel like Illusion of Blue is one of actually my favorite albums
Oh my
of
goodness.
2022.
Thank you. Wow.
I love,
you.
especially side A, I feel such a deep affinity with side A. I think there was
Yes.
something so powerful, and what it felt like to me as a listener, and you can tell me if I'm off base here, is that side A feels much more internal to me, and side B maybe feels much more universal, bigger. There was like a wider lens to how side B was. So yeah, I'm curious to hear you speak about the whole thing. I feel like that was a big net that, whatever you want to put in it.
But I think the way you frame that is really cool, because I don't know if I really initially, when you said it, it felt totally right, like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if I had intentionally, pulled Illusion of Blue out of Estuary, but when you asked, it felt right.
Yeah.
So just to acknowledge, like, thank you. You kind of tied something together that I hadn't. And, just in a nutshell, Estuary, was this piece. It was a narrative musical, one-woman musical about the kind of conflict between being a new mother and an artist, and trying to understand how to navigate the two together without losing myself. Either losing one, I mean, I couldn't really lose being a mother, like when, I know people do, but like that didn't seem like an option to me. I'm glad I didn't entertain it anyway, but so especially not losing my artist self, and the song Estuary, which is the lead song on Illusion of Blue, is the exploration of estuary as metaphor for the two, because when an estuary is actually working, and we live in an estuary, right? Like New York Harbor is an estuary.
Yeah.
Which is so amazing. I mean, when they work together, there's so much life. Like it's so rich with life, like teems with life.
Yeah.
But if there's too much salt water, then everything gets decimated. And if there's too much fresh water, the balance goes off of the salinity, and so it's like trying to find that balance, like always looking for that balance.
Yeah.
And so hopping off of that, like what you were saying about it, Illusion of Blue kind of following through, being the next step after that, it's like still looking for a balance, right? It's like, I think starting off with a song like that is like, it might not necessarily be the balance of parenthood and artist, mother and artist, but maybe it's something else. Maybe it's teacher and artist. Maybe it's something else and artist, and so that was helpful to think about it that way. And then because a lot of the songs and a lot of the pieces, I think, on side one have something to do with nature. There's something in it. I think I like to see like how nature fits into, our stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love this, Jamie. I love this. Can I reflect something back to you?
Please.
Can we talk a little bit about your birth chart, which you have so gracefully shared with me at one point?
Yes.
As you were speaking, I'm reminded that you are a Pisces rising, Libra sun, Virgo moon. Am I correct about that?
I mean, you probably know better than I do. So I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting because Pisces is a water sign and
Mm-hmm.
one often associated with the ocean. And so
Mm.
like you bringing in all of these water imageries feel very much like Pisces to me. Like it's like the setting is this contemplation on water, a life inside water and life looking at water. And then you were talking
Mm-hmm.
about balance, which Libra is often associated with, and this idea of like
Right.
polarities working together. What does it mean to collaborate and not decimate, right? And not overwhelm. And then there's Virgo, which I think is like such a pattern finding sign. Like Virgo is the one that collects information and then tries to create the encyclopedia, you know? And there's something about
Mm.
the way you're talking about your project that really brings that to life. Like I really see it
Yes.
reflected. And I feel like thinking about estuary is such a beautiful metaphor for life, right? Because in a way it's like we are all born with a certain temperament or like a certain, I don't know, for lack of a better term, maybe like karma, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we are
Mm.
born with a certain um like template, you know? And then life experiences brings to us foreign territories, right? Almost like that salt water coming in, and then we have to figure out how to make them make sense together.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
That is so cool what you just said. All of what you said is so cool and makes total sense. The whole astrological, like it makes so much sense. I'm like, of course. That's amazing. And estuary for life. Like I do think so. I really do think so. I think, you know, it really is about balance, and
Mhm.
and I always have this memory. There was this yoga teacher that I had years ago. I don't know where he's gone, but and it wasn't like the most profound class or anything, like some of it was just like, getting it, making the time for yourself.
Yeah.
But he was, he had us just kind of standing there with our eyes closed, like you would in mountain pose or whatever, and then he was like, do you notice that just standing, you're actually continuously moving because you're continuously trying to balance?
Mm.
Like standing, there is like that there actually is no such thing as standing still,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like you're trying to still yourself,
Hmm.
but you're continuously trying to find balance.
Absolutely.
And I always think about that, like,
Hmm.
because it's like with the estuarine idea and with, the idea of like taking the information and the encyclopedic information and then knowing that I'm that sorry to say, but that person at when we're trying to make a decision that's like, yeah, but if we went there, it would probably be fun. Yeah, but the other thing would be good too. Like I'm, 20 minutes later and I haven't made the decision, then I'm certain the decision that I made is wrong. Like so. um, but I think it's like always about that balance,
Hmm.
right? It's always
Totally.
about balance.
Totally. Yeah, my sister, who's a Pilates instructor, always says there's no such thing as a perfect posture because you're
Mm.
always moving. You're always trying to find your next homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as like, yes, you have found the marble sculpture version of this perfect posture.
Right,
It doesn't
right,
exist. Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Like it only exists in snapshots, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
moment, but like not
Exactly.
really.
Hmm. Hmm. I feel that too in terms of how you kind of mix both your own materials and then put them kind of side by side with covers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about the way that you write. I think this is such a testament to how great of a writer you are because they really can stand next to each other, like your work and like these incredible pieces, these incredible tunes. And I
Mm.
think it also speaks to Michael's your partner in life and in music,
Mm-hmm.
ability to create arrangements that help them kind of stand organically and exist organically next to each other. What was
Yes.
your process in terms of choosing songs that you would like to cover? Is there a process, or is it more just like intuition?
I think it's more intuition. I think, I mean, there are a lot of songs that I've always loved, and they're the ones like, you get that feeling sometimes when you're like, "Ooh, I wish I wrote that." Like it's someone's song that that I have had like an affinity for, or something that like a song that goes deep inside you, and it's like they wrote it for you, like even though I know that they didn't, but like, and it could be the lyric, it could be the actual lyrics, or it could be the feeling of it, the movement of it. It could be the melody against the chord progression, and that the lyrics happen to be good enough.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to say it that way, but you know what I mean? Like the lyrics are good enough that the whole thing makes sense.
True.
Because there are some tunes, and I'm going on a tangent for 1 second, but like, there's some jazz standards that like they do have lyrics, but you hear the lyric and you're like, oh, I would never ever sing that. Like, I want to hear instrumentalists play this melody against this amazing chord progression, but I like truly hate those words, like, so that happens sometimes, and so it's not perfect for me. But then like the Harold Arlen tune, like, Ill Wind, it's like, it's a simple lyric, but it's really like there's something that's magical about it, and the way that it moves, like you really feel it, and I felt like it came into that nature theme too, the wind blowing, good, like, and the arrangement that Michael did is just phenomenal, so like it
really is.
It just worked right, and I don't know if I would write a song like with those kind of lyrics. Like I think my lyrics, for better or for worse, like sometimes like I like to use, like words that like are bigger words, like try to get a dictionary word in there, like a 10-pointer.
I love that. I love that about your songs.
I have a friend who she challenges me. She'll like give me a list of like 10 words and be like, you have to use one of these in a song, and like, or, one per song or whatever. And then I have to find places for them that make sense, which is such a fun exercise, like in songwriting. Yeah. But like, just to go back to the Harold Arlen tune, I also love, like, we took a part that he had kind of inserted in the center of the song in his version, like his song version, which most people do not sing. And we picked it up and turned it into a verse, like body of the tune. Yeah. Pre-refrain. And it worked so beautifully, and it gave context kind of to the whole tune. Yeah. Differently. So I guess that's what I look for when I'm doing a cover. Like, what does it stimulate in me? How does it titillate me? Like, and what am I going to express that's different than what other people have expressed in doing this song? And if I can't, then it's like I shouldn't do it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I feel like there's a connection I'm feeling there with what you were saying about nature. I do notice in your writing, there's this back and forth between self and like nature, right? And obviously nature lives within the self as well, but almost like the micro with the macro. And even, for example, in Estuary, there's a moment in which it sounds like you were talking about a personal experience, and then you kind of, I told you this before, but it felt to me like you were reading off of a dictionary,
at the end,
or like an encyclopedia, right? And it's beautiful, yeah.
And I said it was like kind of from, like, I did a lot of research, and I took things from NOAA, the Oceanographic Institute, like from their descriptions of what's right, like how an estuary works, like what would happen if it didn't, Yeah,
exactly. I feel like the element of craft is really present in your writing. There are some songwriters where you can feel like, oh, that person just wrote this in 5 minutes, and some of that is just incredible, right? Right. But also, like, you can tell that it was written in 5 minutes. but I don't feel that about your song. So I'm curious to hear anything you feel like sharing about your process of songwriting, especially for this album.
So two things to like just know in advance. Like one was, as you said, some of these songs existed in pieces before the album was even like before I decided to make the whole album, you know? So like Estuary, the song Estuary existed for the show Estuary.
Yeah. Right.
And Morning Glory, I had written previous. And what's funny is Morning Glory originally, here's a little funny little tidbit. You know, the beginning of the lyric is, have you heard the story about the little Morning Glory who decided that she wanted to grow, right? Like that's, and originally the first lyric that I put to a melody that felt like that bouncy little melody was, when the heat's so heavy that you could almost levy a tax on all the breezes that blow. It was completely different. It was like a song about like, you know, I don't even know what it was going to be about.
Yeah.
You know, but that was the first line. But then I had, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I started reading about, or I don't know where Morning Glory, like how that turned into that. I really don't remember.
Yeah.
You know, but it was a completely different lyric to start. I guess I didn't know where to go after I was taxing the breezes that blew. And I was like, well, then where do you go? Where do you go from there? What happens with that heat?
That was just a haiku.
It was just that, right. I just put that aside and went to something else.
Yeah.
And so I guess, but I had this whole collection of songs that I wanted to make sense with one another. But there was a song called, I can't even remember what it was called. See, I haven't done it, and so I like put it out of my head a little bit, that I recorded for the record. And I was listening through, it didn't make any sense. Like it didn't make sense to have it on there. Even though like I liked some of the way it sounded, you know, I was like, oh, it's going to be a loss. It will be a loss, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So the process in putting the songs together for Estuary or for Illusion of Blue was more like what made sense next. What made sense? You know, I recorded, like part of the process that Michael uses as a producer, which I totally appreciate. Sometimes it's daunting, you know, but is like pick 15 to 17 songs that you might want to put on a record. And then you're going to pick the best 10 to 12 from those.
Yeah.
And all 15 to 17 won't necessarily even begin to be recorded. They might be rehearsed and you're like, no, forget it, you know? And so I had this kind of stable of material. And so then I had to figure out how they made sense with each other.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like it was more of a curatorial exercise.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting.
And the idea, you know, and I think, you know, the idea of the title of Illusion of Blue, like came from water also, right? It was from being on a glacial lake in Iceland. And while in the middle of the lake, there were some calved icebergs. And because, you know, glaciers are like gajillion years old, the water, the ice is so compressed that there's very little oxygen in it. And so the refractive light, like the iceberg literally looks blue because that's the only thing that's being shown in the color spectrum.
Wow.
I'm saying it like so poorly that any scientist would be like crying right now if they're listening. I'm so sorry. But that's the idea of it, right? That's the idea of it. And so, but I started thinking about it, and this was like as it's an illusion in a way, right? Because it's just what we're able to see, right? It's just a part of what's there, but it's not all of it. It's just the illusory, like that's what we're being shown. Do you believe that? And then I started thinking about that as far as like us as human beings. And I was thinking about it, you know, I like Morning Glory is probably like the only happy song on the whole record, really. Like
Mm.
Estuary has, you know, hope,
Yeah.
right? Like there are songs that have hope.
Hmm.
But Morning Glory, I think, is the only one that's like, you're going to do that. You got this, right?
Ironically, that's the only song that I consistently always makes me cry. Every single time I
Really?
listen to it from the very first time. Yeah.
Wow.
There was just something about it that really resonated within me. I can't explain it to you.
Did
I
you
mean,
maybe
if I have it in front of me right now and I start gazing at the lyrics, I will start crying.
start tearing? I have a song. You know what? I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something interesting, but I'll finish with that one thought. And then I'm going to come back to this with you.
Yeah.
But I started thinking about like blue, like we all think about it. Like, I mean, there are books written about the color blue and
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell's record, Blue. And, it's
Mm.
like truly there are books solely about the color and things about it. I like read two of them when I was thinking about the record. But I was thinking about it in like when we are sad, right? We're blue, but it's not who we are,
Mm.
right? It's what we show in those moments. But there's a lot more, so I was thinking like we as the iceberg, like we as like this is what we're showing, and there's such depth and there's difference, and doesn't define us,
Mm.
but in that moment it is how we're showing up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a calcification of a particular area of our life, or like a particular chapter of our life. Yeah. Like thinking about that iceberg, right? Like there's a solidity to it that doesn't always feel like it can melt,
Right. Even though it can.
even though it can, right?
Right. Right. So just going back to it. So Some Other Time, which is the last song on side B, is this Leonard Bernstein tune from On the Town, which is like, I don't know if you ever saw it. Like it's a, musical, which has amazing songs in it, but it's about these
Never
three
seen it.
sailors who come to New York and, have like 24 hours, and there's some amazing songs in it, but
Yeah.
for a period of time, the second that the first couple chords started, I would burst into tears.
Yeah.
I could not get through even the first few lyrics. Like
Yeah.
I could not sing it and be like, I don't even know if I can record it for the record, like,
Yeah.
in the context of the movie or the show, it's like, okay, the 24 hours are up and we wanted to do more, but like, oh, well, some other time, but, and obviously like, Bernstein is not a stupid man, so obviously there's undertones and everything to it, but
Yeah.
as I sang it, like it makes you think about things that you're never going to do again. And then I started thinking about it in kind of related to the idea of estuary, like that it was almost a song about the loss that you experience when you become a parent, like the loss of your non-parent person,
Yeah.
because the lyrics are like, where has the time all gone to? Haven't done half the things we'd want to. Oh, well, we'll catch up some other time.
Yeah.
And I would just be like on the floor. But then there's also something so beautiful about it, right? It's like there is still acknowledgement of those moments, right?
Yeah.
Of like what you have in the present, what you just experienced, and where you truly are in the moment. So I can sing it now, but I have to like frame it almost before I sing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It makes me think of something that one of my Akashic Records teachers said once around, if you think or if you subscribe to the idea of multiple lifetimes and past lifetimes, it's like, doesn't even matter if you didn't get to what you wanted in this lifetime, because there's going to be the next one and there's going to be the next one, So it's like, there's almost like an unlimited adventure that you can go down on. But yeah, there's also melancholy in like thinking about the things, or, even thinking about like people who never have kids.
Right.
Like you essentially are every year looking at, the self that is not going to become a parent.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right. It's like a choice, it is. And then you think about, okay, I made this choice, and there are gains and losses that come with every active choice. I mean, it comes with every choice we make, but if they were actively choosing, then we're aware of them.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to hear you speak a little bit more about kind of the life that you've built now, because you're a teacher, you're an artist, you do voiceover, you're a mother. It seems like you've kind of built this beautiful life as an artist, which, I don't know, I think for a lot of people it can be like, how can someone do that? How could someone get to a point where they can live with their art? And I don't know if there's any question there, but I want to offer that to you and see what comes up for you, if you reflect on that journey for you.
It's a wild journey. It's a wild journey. I'm totally like, with probably more honesty than is called for, but like sometimes it's amazing. Like sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm like, wow, like I'm doing maybe not, to the degree, that I, like, that everything is realized, because I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what that is, but that I'm doing some things that I really love. I'm doing things like I love teaching, and the more that I teach and the more that I learn about teaching, the more I love it. I love singing, and, it, as we were talking about before, like there is ebb and flow, obviously. I love my son, like he's kick-ass, and there are certain things about, like, to say now, like what I'm doing as far as voiceover goes, like I'm totally enjoying right now, like totally enjoying it, and have had opportunities to work on things that are so meaningful and wonderful or funny or smart, or, work with people who I really respect, and that's amazing. And then there are days that I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm like, why didn't you go to law school? Because I applied, I got into law school. I don't know if we ever talked about this. Like I got into law school and I was like, well, the only thing is I don't really want to be a lawyer, and I think that would be a very expensive, like, exploration, right? That would be really stupid. So I didn't, but there are certain days where I'm like, I don't want to be courageous building a path for myself. Like, I want someone else to show me the path. I want, like I feel like Dorothy, I'm like, where's that yellow brick road? Like, I'm just going to walk down that. Like, where is that? And so, there's some days that I feel, like maybe it's that Libra in me or whatever it is, but just like, did I make the right decision? Am I satisfied? Am I doing enough? How do I push myself in that direction when I don't even know what that direction looks like?
Right.
And there's a lot of self-doubt, and I'll say what I'm like, an estuary was that exploration about parenting. You know what I mean? Like, and there are a lot of very honest songs in it about, like, oh my God, like this is not what I thought I signed up for, And I had a challenging time with a baby, and like babies are, to me, like babies are hard. Like they don't talk to you. Like they're really cute, and there's something so amazing about the feeling that life, like sleeping on you, or but like they're really challenging. I was really challenged.
They also do not always respond well to verbal cues, which is
Right. And you're
Another
like,
challenge if
right,
you are
another
someone who expresses yourself verbally.
exactly, exactly. And so, so I had to work through that, knowing that like to really love the moments that felt wonderful and to breathe through the moments that didn't feel wonderful,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I never like I don't wake up thinking, "Oh, I wish I wasn't a mother," which is a really like because I know people that do, like
Yeah.
I never think that, but I think like am I being a good mother? Is he going to be okay? Like, so that's the question more about that, but so I think it's like two things. It's like in some ways I have designed the life that has the potential to be incredibly fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't always live up to that potential.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't always live up to that potential.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I don't want it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. I'm just sitting with that. I feel like that was a profound answer. And I feel like that's kind of what it means to be human, right? Because we're always seeing, if we don't see that bigger vision of the potential, will we have enough energy to actually go and do the thing, right?
Right,
But once we
right.
go there and do the thing, we are often met with challenges and reality around the limitations of said things, you know? Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm. Well, Jamie, I can talk with you forever. You know this.
As could I, clearly.
But I want to respect your time and I want to wind us down to a close. So I'm curious if you can share how can people work with you? How can people find your work, your album, all of the things. I will
I would
also
love to share
include,
that.
in the show notes, a rich repertoire of all of the links and all that. But yes, if you want to tell
Amazing.
folks.
I think the best and easiest way is through my website, which is simplyjamielenhart.com. And that has all the links. That has a link to teaching and has links to records, and then also has the few social media things that I actually participate in. I'm a little bit of a troglodyte, so it doesn't quite always work out. But generally, most of it is there and can be a springboard from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. So my last question for you is the name of this project is Healing the Spirit. So I'm
Yes.
curious if I share that phrase with you, what comes up for you, whether in your mind or in your imagination or somatically, and what do you perceive to be the challenges and the opportunities in, our attempts to healing the spirit?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, what's really interesting to me about it, period, is that in the active healing, right? Because we're in the gerund form, right? We're healing the spirit. We're admitting that there is something that needs tending to,
Hmm.
right? We're putting forward that our spirit is tender and needs tending to, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's what I really think about. It's like it can be. I love the name of it because there's an admission that we need to be tended to in a beautiful way, right? It's
Yeah.
like and it's not like we need to be healed like we're broken.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it that way, but it's more about our spirit is in continuous growth, and with growth comes rupture, right? And then we healed those ruptures, and I think it can be applied to anything that we associate with our spirit, so it could be emotional, it could be something that motivates us, like whatever it might be. But it's really about continuous growth.
Yeah. Thank you, Jamie. That was beautiful. This has
You're
been
welcome.
such
That
a
was
great
really
conversation.
off the cuff. You got me there.
Thank you so much. That's it for my conversation with Jamie Leonhart. Thank you for being here with us today. I hope you found something inspiring, something exciting, something eye-opening for you. And as always, you can find all the ways to connect with Jamie, to inquire about having voice lessons with her, to listen to her albums, which, by the way, we didn't even really get to talking about Jamie's first album, The Truth About Suffering, which is a very timeless album. And I remember the first time I listened to it, there were definitely some songs that got very stuck in my head. So be forewarned if that's the route you're going to go. But definitely listen to Jamie's work and enjoy her beautiful creativity and her gifts. And finally, as you know, this podcast has been a one-person operation until recently. One of my students has graciously helped me with the editing of this podcast. Shout out to Alex Lai. Thank you for your help, Alex. Very much appreciated. And yeah, if you found this podcast or this conversation to be nourishing, to be helpful in some ways, I would absolutely love it if you could subscribe, rate, or review this podcast with 5 stars or whatever is the highest ranking on your podcast app. And if you don't have good things to say, kindly do not leave anything. Thank you very much. If you think someone else will benefit from this episode, also please share this with them, whether on social media with a friend or with your community. I love having conversations with people, and I feel like this podcast is truly such an accessible and widely available platform for people to share ideas that can potentially be very inspiring or shifting. All right, until next time, I hope you take good care of yourself, and I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for listening.